Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us here in the Staples High School Media Lab today. Very special honor to be joined by Bob Lee of ESPN Outside the Lines and SportsCenter. Bob, thanks so much for making the trip down here and joining us.
DJ, it's a great facility. Thank you for the invitation. Chance to meet a lot of you folks. I keep looking for the plaque to David Lloyd here. You're going to have to show me before I leave where the shrine to David is here on campus.
You know we got that in the back.
I didn't realize he'd gone here, and I work with David each week, so that's great news. Thank you.
Certainly so. All right, so let's turn back the clock. Seton Hall. 70s, we go back, WSOU, get your start in the radio station there. Take me through that experience and what it was like.
Well, the radio station at Seton Hall was the reason I went to the school, because they did all the sporting events. I would listen to all the basketball games, and their radio station basically is heard throughout. Now it's known for its music, but back then known primarily for its sports, heard throughout the New York metropolitan area. And so freshman orientation, August of 1972, Richard Nixon is president. It's a whole different world. You know, the world is in black and white. And so I walk in there, it was like Tom Sawyer painting the fence. Frank Scafidi, who's now the chief engineer still at that radio station, says, "You want to run the board?" Now, I'd worked at, shouldn't say this, I worked at a pirate radio station we had in my hometown in Jersey till the FCC shut it down. And so I knew how to run a board and whatnot. So he sits me down, and they're just running tape programming, and he goes out to have a beer and have a smoke, I would imagine, and which, by the way, the drinking age was 18 at the time. I should make a point of that. So upperclassman, he was fine. And I'm running this. I'm not even in the school, and he has me seated down at the console, and I'm running the board. And from that moment forward, it was just it's just something I wanted to do. Became the sports director in my sophomore year. Became the program director. We did games in the NIT. Got to travel a lot to games, and it really provided me not just the radio station, but also certainly all the courses I took there, the foundation for understanding what to do when we work in the media, but also importantly how to bring other skills into it as well.
So from Seton Hall, suddenly there's a little thing called cable TV starting to come around.
Yeah.
So tell me, how did you first hear about ESPN, and walk me through the early days?
Well, I was working at a local cable system, Suburban Cablevision, right just several miles from where the school was, and I had gotten that job after working in radio, and I saw a little ad in Sports Illustrated, or a little story about this operation starting up in Connecticut. So I had been working in local cable for about 3 years. I figured it was time to maybe see if I could do something else. Sent them a tape. They called me up, and 2 weeks to the day before we signed on, I had my job interview from Scotty Connell. And Scotty was walking me to the door. He essentially offered me the job after the job interview. And I said, well, I have a job interview the next day. I had gotten another call that same week to take, and the following day after he offered me a job, I had another job interview at New Jersey Public Television. I had 2 job interviews, one on Friday, one on Saturday, and I had to make my mind up on Sunday. One would have kept me in the area. I wouldn't have had to relocate, wouldn't have had to move. And I think I made the right choice. But at the time, it was a very difficult decision, because this ESPN had not signed on yet. It was nothing more than an idea. It was a big, undeveloped area in Bristol, right on Route 229. So it's all kind of worked out.
So, those first days, you're working long hours. The building's not even constructed yet.
That's right.
And you host the first ever NCAA selection show back in 1980.
That's right. First two, 80 and 81.
So what was that like for you? Such groundbreaking initiatives.
We didn't know that. We at the time, there's a tape that exists. It's buried somewhere in my desk. But they just said, Sunday we're going to get the seeds. We're doing the tournament. Okay, we're doing the tournament. Just come in on Sunday. We're going to get this fax from Kansas City, and the tournament committee is going to give us, and we'll put it on. Okay, and we did it. Now, of course, the announcement of the brackets on Bracket Sunday, it's almost up there with the Super Bowl as a secular holiday. I mean, it's got the security of the launch codes at SAC in Omaha. I mean, but back then, it was no big thing. But yeah, we did in 80 and 81, and the NCAA basketball tournament, DJ, really through the 1980s, I think, gave our network a great identity. We were going from game to game to game. You're going to see a brand new format this year, certainly with CBS and TNT, TBS. But we kind of set the standard there in the early days with coverage of the early rounds going from game to game to game.
So, really with the whole NCAA setup and the way it's been going with CBS, is that something you miss? You guys, having that NCAA tournament?
Well, our company, it's been well reported. Our company was a bidder to gain these rights again, but at a certain point, it just didn't make fiscal sense for the company to advance its offer beyond what it had been. Yeah, we miss it. We miss it a lot. But I think, listen, we have Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
We've got World Cup Soccer. I was so fortunate to be involved in World Cup Soccer last year in South Africa. We got Major League Baseball. Got the NBA Finals. All the BCS bowl games on ESPN. So yeah, we miss it, but there's enough to go around.
Absolutely. So talking about the NFL and the NBA, being an all-sports network, there's a possibility that after the MLB playoffs, November 2nd, there could be no major sports going on at the time.
Right.
And this is an issue you guys were having early on, being an all-sports network, 24 hours of sports, and now it may present itself once again. So what are your thoughts on this possibility in November?
Well, we're going to bring back softball. We're going to bring back demolition derby. I'd like to see a hell of a lot more soccer. No, that is a change. Listen, the NBA is extremely critical to us, but that's further down. That's a November issue.
Right.
The NFL, the National Football League, is the mother's milk of American television.
Yeah.
Nothing delivers an audience like the National Football League. Just look at the recent ratings for the Super Bowl. Largest, by the new metric of the way they measure television audiences, largest audience ever.
Let's transition now to your work at ESPN, primarily Outside the Lines and, of course, SportsCenter during the weekend. So just talk about your preparation that goes into those shows, and then also, how wonderful of an experience it's really been for you working so long for those two programs.
Well, Outside the Lines is Sunday mornings at 9 o'clock, and it's weekday afternoons at 3 in the afternoon. And the weekday show is great because no day is like the next. Every day is different, and it begins basically as soon as we finish with the prior day's show. We're thinking 2 and 3 days out. We're planning already.
Yeah.
Yesterday when I was working, we'd already planned out the next 3 or 4 shows, but with the great ability to change. I can't tell you the number of times we're sitting in the newsroom getting ready to go on 3 o'clock, 12:30, 12:20, whatever. You're standing in line getting a sandwich in the cafeteria. You look at your PDA and say, oh, my gosh, look what just happened.
Yeah.
And we call that like just Wile E. Coyote, blowing up a show. You just hit the plunger and you blow up your show. Things happen on the air and you just react to it. And that's the thrill of that. And I won't lie, this NFL labor story provides us the fodder for a number of different shows. The weekend show is a slightly different feel. It's less news intense, more feature-oriented. But this particular Sunday, for example, coming up, we'll be looking at the NFL labor picture, but we'll also be doing a story on how Shaquille O'Neal and Biggie Smalls, the Notorious B.I.G., were very close friends, and Shaq almost had overslept. If he hadn't overslept, he would have been with Biggie at the time he was shot 14 years ago this coming weekend. So feature stories like that.
Right.
The preparation that goes into all of those shows, beyond just me, by dozens of people, is enormous. But we have a great luxury. We have the greatest luxury you can have in television is time, and we have a half hour each day to shape these shows responsibly, but pretty much with the vision that we can bring to it, and we're entrusted with it. We try not to abuse it, and Sundays are. You mentioned working sports centers. I work with Staples High graduate David Lloyd. I don't know what century he graduated in. I'm going to have to pump him some more details, but that means getting up at 3 in the morning and getting into work about 4:30 in the morning and working till about 1 in the afternoon. So if you want to go into television, nights, weekends, they're spoken for.
So, waking up early is some of the negatives in that, but what is the best part to you about being a sportscaster today?
It beats working for a living. It absolutely beats working for a living. If you enjoy it, it's not work. And I've been fortunate. I've been there for going on 32 years, and it's been tremendous because we've created something that is more than just a network. It's more than just a company. And it's more than just a brand, and it is all of those things.
Yeah.
But we have more, for example, internationally, we have more viewers overseas than we have within the United States. ESPN is now a global brand, but I think we've created something that's cultural. There'll be a book coming out about our network later this year, written by Jim Miller and Tom Shales, who did the book about Saturday Night Live, and the book will be entitled "Those Guys Have All the Fun." And from the outside looking in, that's the case. There's some days inside you got to remind yourself you're having fun, but it's like any job. But I think it really shows that the ESPN has a cultural presence, that you can't write the history of the last 20, 25 years in this country cultural history without reflecting on ESPN, how you go into a bar or a restaurant. It's always up on there. That other broadcast entities have viewers, we have fans, and I don't think that any other network can make that statement. And this, I mean, it's an example for anybody who wants to go into this field. You reveal, and I can tell you've done your preparation today. You've asked very, I'm not just saying this as we're sitting here. No, you've done your homework, and it's apparent in your questions. Same thing with Jim Miller. Jim Miller sits down and asks a question about this ESPN book. You can tell by the quality of the questions. Right. He's done his work. He knows what the follow-ups are. And so when you're asked a smart question, you're going to hopefully rise to the moment. Somebody asks you an easy, lazy question, you'll foul that one off. You'll get a stock standard answer. A good question will provoke a good answer.
Certainly so. So another guy who's had some fun with you for a long time is Chris Berman, Boomer. So
the Swamp.
The Swamp. Talk about your relationship with him and you guys from the beginning.
We go way back. Boomer is bigger than life. He's if you've never met him, he's 6'4". I expect a guy named Boomer, but he is a huge presence. He's a great life force. He just loves sports, loves what he does, and he's infectious to be around. And he is the face of the network and has been since the beginning. And he's a great friend. And we think often of Tom Mees, who was with us also at the beginning, who passed away 14, 15 years ago. And but Chris is in person as exuberant and fun-loving as he comes across on TV. There's no act there, none at all.
Yeah, so why don't you talk about some of the highlights over your career? Looking back on it, what are some of the major moments that you'll always remember and they'll keep with you?
Meeting an incredible array of people. I've been fortunate to interview a number of presidents. I was fortunate to we did a town hall meeting with Bill Clinton back in 1998 in Houston on race and sports. Spent several hours emceeing that, and spent about a half hour with him backstage afterwards. Just a brilliant guy. George Bush 41 invited me to fly on Air Force One, which was the new one, which was new at the time. It had just been put into service. That was a kick, and have fortunate in that regard. This past summer, had a remarkable experience. Went down to during the World Cup. Went down to Cape Town and spent about 45 minutes with Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who is just a remarkable gentleman, Nobel Peace Prize winner, along with Nelson Mandela, the two gentlemen of the public face of the modern South Africa, the struggle against apartheid. And we interviewed him about the impact of the World Cup on South Africa and about South Africa in general. He spent a fair amount of time in the United States, that the bishop has, and he's very conversant with American society. It was a remarkable experience. But we were in an office that I would say that was 1/10 the size of your beautifully appointed studio here. We're down in Cape Town in his offices, and there had to be 15 of us in there. We're all crowded in there, and we've got cables running out, actually sending it back live to Johannesburg.
Oh, wow.
Before we start. And he's wearing the Makarapa, which is the helmet that South African fans wear, and the South African Bafana jersey, not his clerical garb. And he says, before we start, he says, I'd like to offer a short non-denominational prayer. And part of you says, well, wait, I'm a journalist here, but no, you're with Bishop Tutu. This is a man who put his life on the line every time he spoke in public in the 80s and 90s against apartheid, who legally could not even live in the Archbishop's quarters when he took the job in Cape Town because it was against South African law, and you realize it. We all bowed our heads for a very short non-denominational prayer, and it was a very, very powerful moment. It was incredible. And then we went on and did the interview, and then we walked out of there and just saying, there are people who have shaped centuries and decades, and to spend time with that man was really powerful.
Yeah, certainly a great moment. So when people will look back on your career and they'll see all you did for ESPN and helping it grow as a brand, what is the one thing you want people to remember when they hear the name Bob Ley? What do you want them to remember?
I'd like to borrow. I'll borrow from Joe DiMaggio.
Sure, go for it.
Who once was somebody said, Joe, how come you play so hard? He says, there's always somebody out there that never saw me play. And I'd like to think that whether it was a show that was at an off hour and maybe not on ESPN, or whether it was prime time, front and center at the World Cup, you got the same performance and honesty and depth of effort. But I think that's true about a lot of our people. That you can believe what we said.
Bob, it's been a pleasure. Thank
you
so
for having
much.
me,
Appreciate it.
It's been great fun. Thank you.
All right, that will do it for us. For Bob Ley, I'm DJ Sixsmith. We'll see you next time here at the Staples Media Lab. Thank you.